The narrative begins by introducing a teenage girl named Jodie, who heads to a convenience store accompanied by her boyfriend Kevin. Instead of making ordinary purchases, the two intend to commit a robbery and point a gun at the clerk on duty, a man named Carlos. After Kevin grabs the money from the register and returns to the car, Jodie remains inside the store and threatens to shoot Carlos if he does not immediately open the safe located behind the counter. However, Carlos shows no fear, and with unsettling calm, states that she will probably not be satisfied with what she finds inside. In a strange manner, he also suggests that Jodie does not truly care about the choices she has made throughout her life. Without showing hesitation, Jodie shoots Carlos. The story then shifts to Samantha, who appears alone in the middle of an isolated forest. Before that, Samantha had been traveling with her husband Adam to visit her in-laws, but their car stopped after running out of fuel. Adam decided to walk to the nearest gas station, while Samantha remained waiting in the vehicle. 24 hours pass without Adam returning, and overcome with worry, Samantha decides to search for him on her own. She ventures deeper and deeper into the forest until she finds an apparently abandoned cabin. Inside there is an old radio, a table with chairs, a simple bed, and a bag containing a plastic package of peanuts. Hungry, Samantha eats the peanuts without thinking. Suddenly, a man named Tom enters the cabin, and Samantha quickly hides under the bed. After picking up his bag, Tom leaves again. When it seems safe, Samantha crawls out and tries to flee, but she trips and injures her leg. Tom returns shortly afterward and uses a first aid kit to treat the wound. After bandaging it, Samantha explains that the car ran out of gas and that Adam went to seek help. Curiously, Tom states that he also had an accident and has been stuck there for 3 days, as he has no phone to call for help. He says the cabin does not belong to him and that the old radio does not work. The explanation makes Samantha suspicious and uneasy, and she wishes to leave immediately to search for her husband. Tom, however, warns her that the nighttime temperature can drop below 5 degrees below zero, which would be fatal without proper clothing. He also reminds her that she has not eaten since the previous day, and that the forest is vast and disorienting. Upon hearing this, Samantha's concern for Adam grows even stronger. To relieve the tension, she reluctantly smokes a cigarette. Tom borrows the lighter and lights a fire by burning a newspaper dated November 21st, 2011. He then asks Samantha to take him to the car to check the problem, confirming that there is indeed no fuel. Tom marks a tree with a piece of wood to indicate they have passed there. When the sky begins to darken, he suggests that Samantha spend the night in the cabin and leave a note in the car in case Adam returns. Fortunately, Samantha has several blankets in the vehicle that can help them face the intense cold that is approaching. Back at the cabin, Tom offers potable water that he claims to have taken from a nearby stream, but curiously, he has not been able to find the location again. He plans to transfer gasoline from his own car to Samantha's and then go out to seek help while searching for Adam. Samantha reveals that she is pregnant, which is why Adam insisted she remain in the car earlier, and admits that she smokes only to control her anxiety, even though her husband always disapproved of the habit. When night falls, Tom decides to sleep on the floor and allows Samantha to use the bed. During her sleep, Samantha has a disturbing dream in which she is alone in her house, desperate while trying to contact someone. The next morning, upon waking, she realizes that Tom has already gone to the car to get fuel. Suddenly, Samantha finds Jodie, the same girl from the beginning of the narrative, lying unconscious in front of the cabin. After taking her inside, Samantha discovers a box hidden behind the radio containing a small musical toy. The wind outside blows violently, causing the door to slam repeatedly. When Jodie awakens, she is startled to see Samantha there. Shortly afterward, she runs out to search for Kevin. Suddenly, a gunshot echoes from deep within the forest, frightening Tom, who stumbles and spills the gasoline he was carrying. The atmosphere of tension increases as someone asks where they are going and responds that they need to get away from there immediately, because there is another presence in the forest. Soon after, another shot echoes through the forest. Tom shouts, demanding to know who is shooting, but no answer is given. Frightened by the shots and seeing no one near the cabin, Jodie quickly returns inside. While smoking, she comments that the situation resembles a movie in which characters try to survive in the wilderness while facing hostile inhabitants. Samantha has never watched such a film and instead shows curiosity about Jodie's lighter, although it has nothing special. Outside, Tom briefly hears the sound of an airplane crossing the sky, but he cannot see anything above the trees. Shortly afterward, he returns to the cabin and hands Samantha a pair of boots to keep her feet warm, then questions who Jodie really is. Jodie avoids answering and demands that Tom first explain his own story. He repeats that he is trapped in the forest after damaging his car in an accident and for not having a phone to call for help. Samantha's situation is similar, as her vehicle ran out of fuel and she needed to seek shelter there while Adam does not return from trying to find a gas station. Feeling that the environment is strange and uncertain, Jodie decides to leave, but reconsiders when Tom warns that the nighttime temperature drops dangerously. He then asks her to recount what happened before she arrived there. Jodie claims to be from Detroit, and without mentioning the robbery, says that after an incident at a store, her boyfriend Kevin left her on the road after they argued. In an unsettling way, she says she simply found herself in front of the cabin without remembering how she arrived. With no alternatives, she agrees to remain there for the night. Tom demands that she hand over the lighter and then reinforces the door with boards to keep it closed and preserve the heat. Without a bathroom, without a phone, the desire to leave grows, but he declares that if she stays, she will need to cooperate. Jodie begins to suspect that Tom is a murderer lying about the accident to keep her trapped with Samantha. Irritated by the accusation, Tom insists that he is not a criminal and that his only objective is to survive. Later, Jodie dreams that she is hospitalized. In the morning, she tries to leave through the back of the cabin in search of help, but the nightmare leaves her uneasy and another gunshot resounds. She returns quickly and speaks with Samantha, who reveals that she was going to her in-laws' house with Adam to announce the pregnancy discovered a week earlier, with the due date set for early November. Jodie comments that she also has a birthday in November, on the 11th. As time passes, both realize something incoherent. Jodie is certain they are in Wisconsin, while Samantha clearly remembers being near Concord in New Hampshire, her in-laws' destination. The two places are separated by a distance of almost 2,000 kilometers. Meanwhile, Tom continues exploring the forest, finds a bullet fallen on the ground, and keeps marking trees to measure the route. Even so, inexplicably, he returns to the cabin. He believes he has walked in a straight line, but always ends up at the same point, which leads him to think he is losing his sanity. If Jodie claims to be in Wisconsin and Samantha insists they were in New Hampshire, Tom remembers that his accident occurred in South Dakota. The confusion grows among the three. Samantha shows increasing concern for Adam and declares that they are not in New Hampshire, nor anywhere near it, emphasizing that she never mentioned Wisconsin. She then asks where Tom believes they are. He replies that possibly in South Dakota. Revolted, Samantha states that South Dakota or New Hampshire hardly matters and makes clear her dissatisfaction with Tom. This time, Tom has a nightmare involving a gun. Although they still do not understand what is happening, he concludes that if they remain in the cabin much longer, they will die, as the supplies of food and water are rapidly decreasing. Faced with this, Tom, Samantha, and Jodie decide to leave the cabin together in search of help, choosing a route behind the structure that they had never explored. As they advance through the woods, Samantha begins to recall the nightmare she had days earlier. Shortly afterward, Jodie trips after catching her foot on a fallen doorknob on the ground, and a thick wad of money falls from her pocket, leading Tom to question the origin of that amount, but Jodie prefers to ignore the question. Next, Tom uses an axe to break open a locked door, revealing the entrance to an underground bunker. Inside, they find a map that Samantha believes to be about 20 years old, while Jodie assumes it is older, perhaps 50 years. They also discover cans of food, various drinks, and bottles of wine produced between 1925 and the 1930s, all with labels in German. Samantha recognizes the language because her mother taught her some words, since her father, of German origin, died in the war before her birth. Upon hearing this, Jodie comments that her own father also died as a consequence of a conflict. After storing food and drinks in their backpacks, the three return to the surface and are perplexed to once again see the same cabin a short distance away, despite being certain they had walked in a straight line and moved far away. With no alternative, they go back inside, and Tom suggests that the next day they follow separately, each in a different direction. The plan is risky, as it would mean facing the forest alone, but Tom declares that he is willing to take the risk, stating that no one is waiting for him outside, since he grew up in an orphanage in South Dakota and lost his mother by execution. Later, while Tom is outside, Samantha asks to examine Jodie's money out of curiosity. Jodie reveals that the amount came from robberies committed with Kevin and admits that it was not the first time they stole. She further explains that she grew up in extreme poverty, never attended school, and resorted to theft to survive. Samantha, however, believes she is joking when she notices that the bills bear the date 1984, commenting that the United States Department of the Treasury would never issue money from the future. Upon hearing this, Jodie becomes alarmed and asks in which war Samantha's father died and what year they supposedly are in. Samantha replies that her father died in the Second World War and that, according to her, the current year is 1962. Jodie insists that it is 1984, exactly as printed on the notes. When Tom returns to the cabin, both demand to know the correct year, and he states that it is 2011. The shock is immediate when they realize that each belongs to a different era. Tom to 2011, Jodie to 1984, and Samantha to 1962. Soon afterward, another gunshot echoes outside. Through the window, Tom spots a man armed with a rifle, identified as Daniel. To defend himself, Tom grabs the axe and they attempt to ask for help, but Daniel speaks only German and does not understand English, advancing while keeping the gun aimed. Samantha, using what little she knows of the language, declares that they are unarmed, but Daniel suddenly shoots Tom, knocking him unconscious. Upon awakening, Tom realizes that he is tied up, as are Samantha and Jodie, bound to chairs. Considering the year indicated on the wine bottles and on the old radio in the cabin, 1939, it becomes evident that they are now in Daniel's era, during the Second World War, and that the underground space discovered in the forest is a bomb shelter. Stunned, Samantha questions whether Tom used some kind of time machine to take them to the past, but he explains that in 2011 there is no technology capable of such a feat. Samantha is even more impacted upon hearing about future events, such as the crime against John Kennedy in 1963 and the death of Elvis Presley in 1977, realizing that 2011 is an unimaginably distant time for her. Shortly afterward, Daniel returns to the cabin, unties Tom's legs, and forces him outside at rifle point. Taking advantage of a moment of distraction, Tom manages to free his hands and tries to escape, but Daniel chases him through the woods until cornering him, capturing him again, and tying him to a tree. Then Daniel returns to the cabin and demands explanations about what the three are really doing there. Upon noticing the medallion on Jodie's neck, he becomes visibly shaken and rips it off, revealing that he possesses another exactly the same. Once again, he points the gun at Samantha and Jodie. Jodie states that the object belonged to her grandmother, and surprisingly, Samantha declares that she received an identical medallion from her mother. Daniel then takes the two to where Tom is tied to verify whether he also has the same symbol. However, Tom has already managed to free his hands, and when the opportunity arises, strikes Daniel, rendering him unconscious and tying him inside the cabin. When they search his coat, they find documents revealing his true name, Hans Neumann. Samantha is deeply shaken upon hearing the name and states that the woman depicted in the medallion is her mother, adding that her biological father, who died in the Second World War, was named Hans Neumann. Jodie admits that the photograph in the medallion is of her grandmother and reveals that she was born on November 11, 1962. She adds that her surname is Cohen, the same as Adam, Samantha's husband, and explains that she was raised by his family because her mother Samantha died after childbirth. Faced with this revelation, Samantha simply cries and withdraws from the cabin. Tom then reveals that he also has an identical medallion, although he did not bring it. He reveals that his mother Jodie was executed for 2 crimes, killing Kevin, his biological father, and robbing a store at a gas station, fatally shooting Carlos. He states that he was born in a women's prison in South Dakota on December 12, 1985, 8 months before her execution. After her death, only a box full of drugs and an identical medallion remained. Faced with this devastating truth, Jodie remains silent, realizing that her destiny may be set. It becomes evident that Jodie is Tom's biological mother, Samantha is Jodie's biological mother, and Hans is Samantha's biological father, linking the four across generations. Jodie goes out to look for Samantha and reveals that Adam died in the Vietnam War and that his family always despised her, leaving a permanent injury on her right elbow. Samantha, in turn, recounts that her own mother died in a car accident with her new husband shortly after Hans's death in the Second World War. Later, Samantha returns to the cabin determined to speak with Hans privately. She unties him, provoking a confrontation with Tom, but insists that regardless of what happens, Hans is her biological father, and they need to trust one another. Still disoriented, Hans grabs the pistol and the rifle and leaves the cabin. Samantha then recalls the nightmare and understands that it foretold her death in childbirth when Adam was fighting in Vietnam and the ambulance arrived too late. Tom reports having dreamed that he shot a pastor and then took his own life. Jodie also saw in a dream her execution for the crimes committed. Each of them dreamed of their own future death. Tom concludes that they were all brought together there to receive a second chance, altering the past and preventing Hans's death in the Second World War. Immediately, the three head to the bomb shelter and analyze the map found there. Based on Samantha's memories, Hans died during an aerial bombardment after losing contact with his unit, exactly as is about to happen now. As the cabin's radio remains inoperative, Hans cannot communicate with headquarters, and everything indicates that this is the day marked for his death. Tom then sets out his reasoning with clarity and urgency. If Hans survives, his wife will remain by his side and never seek another partner. Thus, when Samantha faces alone the absence of her husband called to war, her mother will be alive and present to take her to the hospital at the crucial moment of childbirth. In this way, Samantha will not die giving birth to Jodie. Jodie will grow up far from abandonment and violence, becoming an upright woman, and Tom will also have a different destiny, as he would be raised by a balanced mother who would never follow the path of crime. Although everything seems like a desperate theory, a concrete sign appears when the scar on Jodie's elbow begins to disappear before everyone's eyes, as if time were being silently rewritten. This demonstrates that the future is already transforming, as Hans begins to understand fragments of the truth revealed to him. He died when he lost contact with his unit. If he survives, his wife will never remarry and can be by Samantha's side while Adam is in the Vietnam War, preventing her from dying in childbirth. After this revelation, the three return to the cabin, where Hans finally manages to make the radio work and prepares to follow superior orders. However, a terrifying transmission announces that headquarters will bombard the area shortly, as Hans is considered missing and unable to fulfill his mission. Outside, he points the rifle at the three while Samantha tries to convince him, almost pleading that he must immediately take shelter in the underground bunker so as not to destroy the future of 3 entire generations. Hans hesitates and ignores the warnings, and Tom tries to drag him by force to the shelter. In the midst of the confusion, Jodie is accidentally shot by the weapon Hans is holding. If Jodie dies, Tom will cease to exist, as his birth would depend on her. Therefore, the only way to restore the timeline is to save Hans at any cost. Tom runs after him through the forest, and the two engage in physical confrontation, a brutal fight between great-grandfather and great-grandson, marked by desperation and survival instinct. Hans manages to overpower Tom and flee, but the forest seems to fold in upon itself, creating paths that repeat infinitely, where right and left become confused and front and back become indistinguishable. However, at the instant Jodie succumbs to the wound, Tom abruptly disappears from reality, as if he had never existed. Devastated, Samantha forces Hans to run to the bunker, trying to make him understand the gravity of the situation. Hans finally runs alongside Samantha toward the shelter, dodging the explosions that devastate the forest. A detonation throws her against a rock, leaving her unconscious. Even so, Hans carries her into the bunker and takes cover there. Shortly afterward, Samantha dies, and her body, like Jodie's, disappears just as happened with Tom, as if time had closed an invisible cycle. The narrative then returns to 1984, in the same store observed by Carlos at the beginning. This time, Jodie appears transformed, dressed with elegance and serenity, calmly paying for her purchases instead of drawing a gun. Soon after, Kevin enters accompanied by another woman, indicating that the course of events has changed drastically. The couple commits the robbery under Carlos's attentive gaze, and the young woman displays a strange sense of familiarity, as if that place had already been the stage of something forgotten, silently wishing that someone would stop them before it is too late. Next, the scene shows Jodie returning to her large and luxurious residence, a symbol of a completely different life. A newspaper highlights the death of Hans Neumann, a decorated veteran and respected philanthropist. In this new scenario, Jodie does not possess the medallion, as it is still with her biological mother, Samantha, who remains alive and lives with her. Two unsettling questions remain: whether Tom will ever be born from Jodie and a different future husband, and in what way Hans, Samantha, Jodie, and Tom were brought together in that cabin lost in time. Everything suggests that Carlos and the mysterious safe played a fundamental role, as if they were instruments of a higher force granting one last opportunity to an entire lineage destined for tragedy.